Welcome to group coaching session 10. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm going to go ahead and play our disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number ED-BSE 15A0015/0006 with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right, so now you're officially disclaimed and we can jump right in. So this week, we're going to be talking about supporting and engaging families during this time of virtual learning. This was one of the topics that folks had requested. So we're going to be talking through just a few tips and strategies, and then we will go into 3 different tools. We're going to specifically talk about Google Voice, Remind, and Class Dojo. And then I have a bonus one if we have time as well. So they're our top secret bonus tool if there's time in our day. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Just a reminder, these are our more informal sessions. So as we're going along, if you have questions, if you want to ask about another feature or how something works or how it would apply to your environment, unmute and feel free to ask out loud, or you're welcome to pop it in the chat box, and I'll be trying to keep an eye on that as well. So whatever kind of works for you is fine. So let's jump right in. So as we think about supporting our families during this time, these are just some general tips and strategies that have worked well for other schools, other programs, and that might be beneficial for you to think about as well. So the first is to think about communicating often and through multiple channels. So, when you think about the different ways in which you're reaching out to families, to really think about sending the same message or similar messages through multiple channels. Because like you see with many things, even during a standard school year, just sending out information in, a letter home or an email out to families doesn't always get through. And particularly now when we're all being bombarded with a lot more information, I think it's even more important to think about how we can approach families through multiple means. So whether that's through, a note home or a letter or something like that, an email, about ways that we could send a message home virtually, a way that we could use social media to send it that way, so that they're getting it in multiple avenues, so that even if they're not checking one, they might see it in another. And the other is to make your communication frequent but purposeful, so that families feel supported, so that it's not, well, we got a message at the very beginning of the school year and we've never heard from the school again. Thinking about ways that you can check in. And it was interesting. I saw one school that was doing they were doing it daily. To me, that seems maybe a little much, maybe like a weekly wellness survey where they do texting with their families, and they were just texting out kind of a basic, how are you doing today? And it had little emojis that they could pick from. And if families indicated that they weren't doing very well, then they would be scheduled for some follow-up. So someone, whether it be the teacher or a counselor, someone would then follow up with them. And I think that's, an interesting way to think about that as well. Then as we think about those different channels, strengthening your social media. So I know many of us may have a website, may use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever different forms of interaction that you currently have available, making a concerted effort to keep those up to date and to regularly post to them. And one thing that can really help with that is the use of a content calendar. There are lots of these that you can download off the internet. If anyone is interested in something like that, I'm happy to send you just a template. But basically, it helps you to plan out what you're going to send out, so that okay, on Tuesday, I'm going to send out this message through all my various channels or update it on my website. and you can just kind of knock it out. And you can also schedule those things in advance. So all of the platforms now allow you to schedule things so that you don't have to be getting on to all those channels all the time. Now, if it's some type of timely update, something that you need, oh, it happened this morning, I need to let people know right now, of course you're going to log on and do that. But when it's these touch points or tips or just reaching out, you can schedule those weeks in advance so that you're not having to get onto social media on a daily basis. The next idea is thinking about creating family leaders. So some family members that would kind of act as ambassadors for your program. So think about who are those family members that are already maybe a bit more engaged in your program than others, who are a bit more knowledgeable or have a bit more time available to engage. And how could you leverage them during this time to help with that, to create, a real sense of partnership between the families in your school or program? Thoughtfully recruit a few key family members that could help you with this. I would encourage you, if you use this strategy, to really think about being clear about the purpose and responsibilities for those individuals, maybe coming up with like a basic job description for them, providing them with ongoing support, not just kind of setting them loose and saying, make sure to distribute information or just feeding them the information, but regularly connecting with them as well. And then think of a way you can recognize them, through those same channels that you're reaching out to families. Those are great ways to then recognize those folks for going above and beyond. Think also about connecting with other organizations. So, for a lot of families, you may be the folks that they connect with on a most regular basis, even if it doesn't seem as regular to you. And so really thinking about just checking on how they're doing in general, and that can help develop that rapport and relationship so that they are more likely to read the things you're sending out. They are more likely to answer the phone when you call, to respond to your communications. So, if you know that families might be struggling with food insecurity, just sharing some resources for when maybe local community food handouts are occurring, or where they can apply for some benefits in that area. Same thing around maybe rent assistance. And not that you need to be providing all of these things for them, but maybe just helping connect them with other services and organizations in your community that have things available during this kind of troubling time. And then finally, look at ways that you can create a sense of community. And, some of the ways to do this, I saw one group that on Facebook, they created grade level groups. And so there was a private group for like all the fourth grade families and a private group for all the fifth grade families. And so they were able to actually connect with other families that way and with the teachers of that grade level, and just gave, an easy way for them to be able to communicate on a platform that folks were already engaging with pretty regularly anyway, and help create that sense of community that is sometimes a little bit harder in this virtual environment. So just some things to kind of think about there, and you'll see some of the tools that we're going to talk about in a little bit can help you with those things as well. And then the other side of the strategies are some to think about specifically how to support your families with this virtual schooling, with supporting their students. So I know some of you may be doing a virtual open house or meet the teacher. If you're not, think about doing something like that so that they have an opportunity to meet the teachers of their child, to see a virtual open house, to do an orientation to the school year and how things are going to be operating right now. Think about how you're onboarding your families. So I think some things that can be really helpful information that a lot of families are struggling with right now are things like creating a home learning environment. So not many families necessarily have the benefit of a separate office or area for their child to do their home learning in, and particularly if they have multiple children. So, giving them some tips and strategies on how they can create a home learning environment that'll be conducive to learning. Thinking about what are some things that they can do as a family to get ready for the first day of school and to get ready for the virtual learning. Maybe some tips or a session on navigating your virtual learning platforms. And these don't all have to be live sessions. You can think about doing like a recorded video that families could watch at their leisure that walks them through just the basics of some of these platforms that they're going to need to be utilizing for virtual learning. Another thing that can be helpful is, walking them through how to create a school schedule. So both providing them with the schedule of what you expect from students, but also how they can kind of create a schedule for the day for their kids at home so that there's that consistency, and that can really help with some of the battles they're going to be dealing with in the home environment. And then even some basic homework help. So again, whether it's a live session or a recorded video or a handout that you can send out, that gives them some tips on how to help with some of the instructional things that their students are going to be engaging with that they may not feel prepared to help with. Another thing that can be helpful in that vein is to set up some virtual office hours. These don't have to be every day, but to just let families know, during these times that you are at work, even if you're at home, that you're at work, that you're available for, more immediate responses to emails, or time for like a virtual chat or a phone call, that, you're kind of setting up a virtual time maybe once a week that you're available for families in particular. Not that they couldn't schedule something with you outside of that, but kind of that immediate assistance piece. So just some ideas, some thoughts about things that may be helpful when thinking about how to keep your families engaged during this time and keep them feeling supported. So before we jump into our first tool, any kind of questions or thoughts on this so far? All right.
I think I'll do
I know we've had
office hours. I haven't done office hours before for parents.
Yeah, and the first part cut out. Did you say, how do you do?
Oh, no, I just said, I think I'll set up office hours.
Yeah, and I think, that can be just a nice way to just show the families they're not going to take advantage of your entire office hours every time you offer them, but it just, I think, shows them yet another way, I'm here for you, I'm here for your kids, and, the students can use that too. All right, any other questions or comments? All right. And I know a few of you logged in just a few minutes after we started. So just a reminder that these are our more informal sessions. So if you do have questions or comments, feel free to unmute and chat with me like Susan just did, or pop them in the chat box. Either way is totally fine. We want to make sure you get your questions answered. So we're going to go to our first tool, which is Google Voice. So I'm curious, feel free over in the chat box to share with me if you've ever used Google Voice. But this is going to be a very simple tool. Some of you will use it, some of it won't apply. But because so many of you are now working from your homework environment instead of from your school, I think this could come in handy, because then when you're saying, okay, well, I'm supposed to call families and I'm supposed to give them an opportunity to call me, but I don't really want the families knowing my home phone number or my cell phone number. That is a legitimate concern. You don't necessarily want to be sharing your personal cell phone or home phone number with families, because we all know that that can sometimes get carried away in its use. So Google Voice is an awesome free option to be able to get a separate phone number that you can use as your work phone number from anywhere. So you can see this is a screenshot, and I'll go live momentarily to the Google Voice environment, but you can get a generally local phone number. Sometimes, like I looked out of curiosity if they had any Alaskan phone numbers available. They didn't, because they're just, since there's fewer zip code or area codes in Alaska, they didn't have any for there, but they had some in lots of other places. So you can put in the area code you'd like, but sometimes you have to be a little bit more flexible and maybe go like a little outside of some of the larger areas. But they'll assign you this phone number. It is totally free. The only reason that there would be an expense is if you chose to use it for like international calling, and then you can learn how to do all that. But the way it works, let me unshare this and go live to the Google Voice. There we go. is that once you pick your phone number, and basically what happens is once you tell it what area code, it'll give you a couple of number options that are available, and you can pick it, and then it's yours. And once you have it set up, you can see I've had this up for a really long time, and I don't actively use it anymore. You can clearly tell from the super old call log that is just old calls that are telemarketers at this point. But it keeps track, so you have your nice call log here. You can see it says I'm all caught up because I've checked all of these long ago. That's under this little phone icon. But you can go then to your text messages, because you can use it for texting as well. Again, the only one I have left is some come on that I received about low-cost pharmacy benefits. But so I would be able to text back and forth here. You've got your voicemail. Some of the nice things about the voicemail is that it transcribes it, much like many cell phones do now, so you can see it in that manner, which is nice, or play it. So you've got that feature. You can actually call directly from this from your computer. You can also have it, you have to set it up with some kind of phone number it can connect with. So you can have it to where it'll ring to your cell phone, and you can use it just like you would your cell phone, but it's going through your Google number. The other nice thing that I like about this is that it makes it really easy for you to keep these records of who's called, who's texted, voicemails, so that you have good documentation, and you can set quiet hours. So because this is a super old one, it asked me a long time ago if I was using it anymore. If you don't use it for a long time, it'll ask you if you're using it anymore. And if you say no, it takes the number back, but it still saves all your documentation. But if you go under the settings here, you can see you can set this do not disturb, at which point it'll send everything directly to voicemail. And it's not going to let me because I don't have a phone number attached to it. But normally when you actually have a phone number attached to it, you can also just set regular hours that do not disturb is on. So if you don't want work calls ringing after 5, then you set your do not disturb to 5, and everything after 5 will go directly to voicemail. So that can be nice too, because if someone has your regular cell phone number, they can call whenever. With this, they can still call whenever, but it's not going to ring and disturb you. It's going to go straight to a voicemail. So it's just a nice way to be able to kind of differentiate between work life and home life and not have everybody have access to all your info. So that is our first tool. We'll jump back in. And again, I like it because it's entirely free, which adding another line onto your phone would not be. All right, let's go to our next tool, which is Remind. So same thing in the chat box, if you'll kind of share, have you tried Remind before? Not so much. So Remind used to be called Remind 101, and then it got purchased by another company, and so now it's Remind. So you might have heard of it previously under Remind 101. So as we look at this one, this is really great for communicating with students and families in a private, safe, free manner. Okay, so you'll see, you can share the story of your classroom. It does provide translation if you had families whose first language is not English, but is one of the primary 30 languages that they have. They are most likely not going to have the native languages that we're teaching in the programs. But it also has the nice thing of you can set these quiet hours. So same thing, they could still be sending you messages during those quiet hours, but it just lets them, it'll automatically reply to them and let them know it's quiet hours. You'll respond to them, when you're off quiet hours, when you're back at work, which is a nice little feature. You'll also see one of the things I really like is that when you send out communications, it's going to let you know how many were successfully delivered. So if you've got a cell phone that's been cut off, if you've got an email that is not the correct email address, it's going to let you know. And that way you can go ahead and address with that family or that student, you know, oh, I sent a message to your mom and the email bounced back, and try to get it figured out. It'll also let you know not only how many did it deliver to, but how many actually read it. So with a text message, how many actually opened the text message, and with an email, how many actually opened the email message, which can be very helpful. And it will let you know that with student messages you send out as well as family messages. So I really like that feature. And then you'll see it's an option. You can set it, the kind of default setting is that it's one-way communication. You're sending out notifications, you're sending out information, and it's just that one-way push of information. But in the settings, you can change it to allow for two-way communication. So if you want students or families to be able to reply to your message or send you a question, you can enable that and then be able to communicate back and forth. So it's up to you how you want to use it and how it would best work for you. And then I loved this idea. So I stole it so I could share it with y'all. This particular teacher sends out daily scavenger hunt questions. And so he has these scheduled for his students, because this is another one where you can schedule information to go out. So you don't necessarily have to be getting in here every single day to put in a message. If you know what you want to send out on a specific date, then you can schedule those well in advance. So he has scheduled out these daily scavenger hunts to go out. And so you can see, you know, in their Google Classroom, they have to go on and post the equation to Newton's second law on the whiteboard. First person gets a prize. You know, take a picture of your friends demonstrating a positive net force to the right. So he sends out these fun daily scavenger hunts that are applicable to his information as just a fun way to engage with them daily. So I think that just seemed like a neat idea. So let me show you again live how this works. It's very user-friendly how it's set up, which I always like something that makes it easy for me to use. Maybe, there we go. All right, so let's go over to Remind. And you'll see I set up my fake class. You can create different classes. So if you want to set it up by class period, by grade level, by school that you serve, whatever is the easiest way that you want to kind of divvy up your kids, or you can set it up as one big one, whatever floats your boat, however you send out information. So in my fake class that I've got going here, you can see messages that I've sent out. So I've only done the one message since it's really just fake. But anytime you want to send out a message, you click in this box. It's going to send out to my group there. You'll notice if I click on the pencil, if I don't want to send it to the whole group, I can send it to specific people, or I could even create a new group. So if I wanted to, you know, create a group that's specific students or specific parents or just students or just parents, whatever, you can do that. But I'm going to leave it as everybody. And this is my test message. You can see if I had a handout that I wanted to attach, I can attach a handout there. So maybe a letter home, maybe a bit of information, maybe a flyer about something. You can attach it and it will include it. And then you see you have all these other options and integrations. So you can upload a photo or video. If I don't want to drag and drop my file, I can click here and upload that way. I can bring in something from Box. It'll integrate with your Google Classroom, your Google Drive, if you use OneDrive. Sign Up and Sign Up Genius, if you've never used those, they're free ways to get people to sign up for things. So those are kind of some neat integrations as well. Or SurveyMonkey. So if you're using SurveyMonkey to ask families to complete a survey, that could integrate. Or if, like we talked about last time, if you're using a Google form, so basically a Google survey, then that would be the integration with Google Drive there. I can send it right now, or I can schedule it. So maybe I want to send it today at 3:35 in just a few minutes, because maybe that's the end of the school day and that's when I want it to go out. So I'll schedule it. And you'll see I've still just got the one that's actually gone out, but now I've got my one scheduled announcement down here. So you could schedule out lots of things in advance. So super easy. You've got files where you can start sending files out to your class that way as well. If you don't want to send a whole message, you're just uploading files to send to them. You can do that. Here's how you add people. So of course I have my fake people in here. So you can tell who they are. The way you add people, you can add a student, a parent, or a teacher. So again, if you have co-teachers in your class, this is how you'd be able to add your co-teachers. But let's say I got it. I'm going to add my student. You do have to put in a phone or email. So you could either put in, if they have like a student email address through the school, or if you're using a phone number with older students, if allowable by your school or organization, you could use their cell phone number if that's something allowable. Otherwise, you would use their family's cell phone number, so a parent phone number. But typically with students, you're going to add them by their student email address that has been created for them. And then you just hit add people and it's going to send them an invitation. If it's an email, it'll pop up and it has a real quick join button. If it's a text, they get a text with a real quick join button. And then once they click that, they'll show up here. So you'll see like Marshall is a student. You'll notice some people have family members, some people don't. So like if I go to Morgan that shows a family member, I can see her parent is in here. And so I could send a message directly to her parent. I can also add a parent. So if that parent has already joined, I can just search for them and add them to that student, since often you'll have many students with the same parents and families. Adding a parent, if I go to add people again and want to add a parent, same way, whatever their preference is, you could put in their cell phone number or their email address. And then when they join, if they join via cell phone and they'd rather do email, it'll give them that option. But that's where they'll receive their information from you. So really easy to do. You'll notice if you're doing your whole class and you already have it in like a Google Sheet or an Excel document, you can just upload it that way and it'll take it and do it all for you. So super easy to do. You set all that up. The other nice thing in here again is that it's saving all of that documentation for you. So anything that you're sending to a student, the parent has access to. So it keeps all of that documentation there for you, there for the family. So really keeps everything in one easy spot and super easy to use. And you can even set it up as a school where the administrator sets it up and they would have access to things as well. So lots of, nice, easy options with Remind. Any questions on Remind right now? All right, while you think about that, I am going to show you one other thing. They also have a really handy remote learning guide that they just recently put out with everybody moving to remote learning. So if you go to their website, right on the front page, it has, check out our guide to remote learning. And it gives you some great ways that you can integrate it with your other remote learning tools and their ideas for how it can be used to really keep communication with families, keep communication with students open. And particularly for families, I think it makes it so easy because if they're more of an email person or more of a text message person, they can opt to get their messages that way. If you set it up for the two-way communication, it's super easy for them to send questions or comments right back to you. So definitely an easy way to do that. And then Remind has also made a commitment, and this was even before the pandemic, that their product will always be free for teachers. So this is not one of those things that you have to worry about. You're going to get everything set up. You're going to get everybody used to using it. And then it's going to go away and it's going to cost money. So, you can do it that way and not have to worry about that part. All right. So if we use Google Classroom, these optional add-ons, or should we use Google for Education products? So I have a two-part answer for you, and I'm going to switch our screen as I'm answering. But so as far as are these optional add-ons for Google Classroom, I will double check. I believe Remind is an integration with Google Classroom, but I'm writing it down right now to check. Now, as far as whether you should use a specific, Google for Education product, that's really up to your school, your program, your district, and what they would prefer that you use. If they don't have a preference, then it's just up to you, whatever you find most user-friendly and easy. But I know for some districts, they have mandated the use of certain things, or they only want you to use Google for Education products. You're just going to need to double check with them what rules and guidelines they have in place for that. But on the end, as far as whether it's a specific add-on for Google Classroom, I'll double check, but I believe it is already set up as an integration. So I'll get you an answer on that. Good question. Any other questions about Remind? All right. So we're going to go to our next option here, which is Class Dojo. So kind of same thinking here. Curious if you've used Class Dojo before. So if you want to pop over to the chat box and let me know, yes, I've tried it. No, I've never even heard of it. Wherever you are with Class Dojoing. And we'll kind of see. So far, we're about 50-50, or you've heard of it, but definitely haven't tried it out yet. So as usual, we started out with our very simplest tool, Google Voice. We moved to kind of the mid-ground tool, Remind, and now we're going to our what I would call fanciest or most feature-rich tool, which is Class Dojo. It's another one that is free. So this one you'll see, kind of what they bill themselves as is that they connect teachers with students and parents to build amazing classroom communities. So when you go into Class Dojo, there's lots of different ways that you can use this to be able to highlight things going on with students, to be able to build a really positive learning culture. When you go in, you'll see, one of the things you can do is even do a digital portfolio where you can be sharing student work. So whether the students are taking pictures of things, or maybe you're taking screenshots of things that they're doing, you can actually share out their work, which is a really fun way to recognize them. So when you sign up, it immediately is going to ask you, what are you wanting to do with Class Dojo? And that's going to determine what features it turns on. Now, you can always go back and change these things, but do you want to use it to manage behavior? So if you're wanting to use this to kind of reward positive behaviors and redirect those non-desired behaviors, it has features for that. If you're specifically using it right now for learning at home, then there's some specific features for that. If you're looking for some of their specific classroom tools, maybe you're just using it for family communication, then it'll just turn on those tools for you. And it's doing this so that you're not overwhelmed by a bunch of stuff and a bunch of buttons and features that you don't really need if that's not what you're using it for right now. The other options are specifically for collaborating with students, and then social emotional learning. So you select all that apply. You can select all 6. Like I said, these are also things that you can change later. So don't feel like, well, if I don't pick it right now, what if I want it later? Everything's changeable later. But let me take you over and actually show you what this looks like. And this is another one that pretty user-friendly, set up in a nice little manner. It's also one that has promised to always be free. So a lot of folks use Class Dojo during the regular school year, during in-person instruction, still as a way to be able to communicate with families. It's also really popular for that behavior management part. So it's something you could start using right now during virtual learning and really continue during in-person learning. And same thing with Google Voice and with Remind. These are all things that I think you could start using now and that are particularly beneficial right now, but that you could definitely still keep using when you're doing in-person instruction. So, does not look like it is sharing the right thing with you. Let me try once more. There we go. All right, so let's head over to Class Dojo. The other nice thing that I like is that they already set you up with a demo class. So if you're wanting to play around with features, you can do it in the demo class. So you're not having to either create your own fake class or go in and mess with things and worry that you're going to mess up your regular classes. Every account comes with a demo class for you to play with. So we'll go into the demo class. You'll notice all the students are named after celebrities. So interesting little feature in here. But you'll notice it has all the kids. The kids do have to be put in by first and last name, but then after you put them in as first and last name, they're always in here by just their first names for security reasons. You'll see that I can add students very easily. So again, if I want to put in little Falula, I have to give her some kind of last name. Add her, there she is. Notice, if you're doing your whole student group, you can copy and paste in that list, so you're not having to do them one by one. And then magically, there she is. Now, if you're looking across the kids in your classroom, we'll go into Jennifer. And this is part of that behavior management piece, so that you can actually award points for positive tasks. So let's say that she was really doing a great job in your virtual class today on participating. So I can award her a point today for participating. And she'll get notification of that. Her parents will. I can edit and add other skills. So if there are other skills in particular that you're working on, so it might even be if you're trying to encourage use of new vocabulary in language, that could be one, or just, anything that you're trying to encourage. You can also, on the other side, have tasks or skills for things that need some work. So you can take away points. So if I want to add a skill that needs work, you could put in did not turn in assignments. And you could have it to where it has no actual point value, it's more informative, or you could assign a negative point value. And a lot of teachers will then use that. So let's say she was very participatory, but she didn't turn in her assignment. Oh, so I've got that set up, and now, so a lot of teachers will set up maybe a point total as a goal for each student or for the class as a whole as part of that managing behavior. They have a lot of great resources on here kind of walking you through how you can use this for positive behavior support. So that's kind of one function in there. You'll notice you can also award points to the whole class or take away. It's got the portfolios here, so that if you're using that portfolio function, you can assign activities right in here. You can look at their particular portfolios. So if this was something you were using, you could add things in here as well as the student could. If the student does it, you have to approve it. If you do it, of course, it goes right in. Class story is where you'd it's very, very much set up like Facebook, to where you can share things that are going on in your class, photos, updates, and it's going to go out to students and families. So even if you're not using this for some of the student stuff, if you're not communicating with students through here, if you're not managing behavior, if you're using it primarily for communicating with families, this is how you can share all of that information in a private, secure manner. You can include photos and videos, files. You can record yourself, so you can create a little video and send out a personal video recording. And you can even create events that you may want to encourage families to join you for the upcoming virtual meet the teacher or whatever is happening. And then post it. And you just type in your thing and post it, and it shows up, and you'll notice, again, very, very much like Facebook, they can like it, they can comment, and all of those things. If someone were to put something inappropriate, you can immediately remove. They're all erasable. So that's really nice. And then, so that's the public. The class story is your public part. Now, it's not out to the general public. It's just out to those families that you've invited to your class dojo. The messages part is where you can basically text message, or, you know, as they put it, instant message families directly. Now, they don't have any families set up in here just yet on their demo class, but you'd be able to send out your message just like we saw in Remind, where you can just type it in, including like a handout or attachment, and send it out again to all your parents or specifically to one parent, and they can reply back. So it is two-way communication that way. And same feature where you can set those quiet hours. So they can, you know, if they read it at 2 a.m. and they send you a response at 2 a.m., great. At least they're still responding to you. However, it's not going to ding anywhere for you. It's not going to set off any bells and whistles. It'll just be there waiting for you in the morning when your quiet hours are over. So lots of things like that. I'll show you as far as inviting parents. Super easy. You again just put in either their chosen email or phone number, hit invite, and it will send you a nice little either email or text message, and they'll click join. Both Remind and Class Dojo do have apps for the phone, so that if they want to get it through the app, which is just a nice user interface, they're welcome to download the free apps and get the information that way as well. They also have an option here to download a printout. Let's see if it's gonna get my invites. Come on. All right, and so it's gonna pop up. I'll switch so you can see. It makes a nice little handout that you could then send home or email or whatever for the Class Dojo, so that you don't necessarily have to come up with all those directions. It's going to do that for you. So you can see 3 steps to connect parents. Tells you exactly what to do. Print the parent invite, send it home, they'll connect. And go down to the actual invite. And let me change the size so you can see it a little bit better. Remember, I did not create the fake class, so it's all celebrities. So to Leonardo DiCaprio and his parents, from me, their teacher, I'm using Class Dojo to connect with families, share classroom moments, and much more. Please join to stay connected. And it gives them their own personal code. So they can download the app, put in that code, and it's going to immediately connect them directly to their student in your class privately. So it sets all of that up for you. You can just print these out or email them out, whichever way you're kind of getting beginning of your information to folks, and it's all taken care of really nice and simply. Questions on the Class Dojo? All right. And I think we have time. I'd said there was one bonus one if we had time. Those were the primary ones I wanted to make sure we had time for, because it really gives you a lot of good free options for how you can connect and communicate with your families this year. So the last one is more of a fun one, if it were of benefit and use, and it's something called Artsonia. So this is another one that is entirely free all the time, not just right now. And it's an online student art portfolio. And so this is really a neat way for your students to be able to share not just necessarily their artwork, but they can even share, say, projects that they create or anything like that. So if you're having them create or make anything, it can be shared here in a portfolio, because that's basically what it is just an online portfolio. So you as the teacher can sign up for free, and then you set up each of your students, just like really we've just done in the Remind and in the class Dojo, and it creates their little student portfolio, which, you know, to me looks a lot like Pinterest. So kind of a Pinterest board of their work. And then what's nice is that you can upload their work or they can upload their work, and then family and friends can view it. So for instance, my niece is starting school. Her school is actually using this. And, you know, normally for lots of things, there's only just the parent login, because I don't necessarily need to know her daily behavior. But how fun that you could share with grandparents or an aunt the cool things that they're creating in class. So you're not doing any more work than what you already were, because it gives the family a private code that they can send out so that family can view that student's portfolio, and they can go on and they can like it, and yay, the kid knows that, you know, grandma saw the latest thing that they made. So this one is not a two-way communication. This is not what you would use for ongoing actual family communication. But depending upon, you know, if you're doing a lot of projects in your class, if you're making maybe some cultural artifacts, or, you know, if you're creating books or anything that you could then share out in their portfolio of the work that they're doing, it just gives them a neat and public way that they can share off their hard work, get recognition, and for their, you know, family at large to be able to see what they're doing and what they're up to and be proud of them. So like I said, just a little bonus one if it's something that might be fun for you to use in your program at some point. All right, any questions right now? All right, we'll take questions, comments. I do want to give you a couple of reminders. So do remember, I know depending upon what other things you have going on, sometimes the sessions might be when you're instructing students now that schools have started or will be starting in the next couple of weeks, or you may have been on vacation for one of our previous sessions. But if you want to go back and view any of the previous sessions, we have those available. They're available both on the resource database as well as on our YouTube playlist. So you can always go back and watch those. You can even post questions there, or as always, you're welcome to reach out to me with questions in between sessions, and I'm happy to help and answer those. But all of that information is there for you. The other thing is that we sent out a survey, and it actually came from Angela Hernandez Marshall at the Department of Education. She sent it out yesterday. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to check your spam, because sometimes things from folks who don't email you as regularly tend to go to spam. But it's our annual feedback survey. And so we send it out. It's really asking you to provide some feedback on the trainings and the technical assistance that we've done from last October, because the grant year runs October to end of September. So from last October through now. It's a super short survey. It has 9 questions and should take you no more than 10 minutes to complete. So if you would take those couple of minutes and complete that, it is super, super helpful for us, because it really lets us know, you know, over the last year, what were the things that were helpful and what were the things that maybe weren't as helpful, what would be helpful in the future. you will notice that Katie and Bejik and Susan all said they already did it. I know 9 of you have already completed it. It is an anonymous survey, so I never know who's completed it. I just know that people have completed it. So you'll notice they said that the survey was super quick. So they're vouching that I'm not just, saying that. So please, I would really appreciate if everybody could complete the survey if you have not done so already. And Miranda has even popped the link to it over in the chat box. So if you, have nothing to do for the next 6 to 10 minutes, you can go knock it out right now. Those are the only things kind of going on in that realm. Coming up though, next Tuesday, we have our next group coaching session. We're going to be talking about ways to assess learning virtually and hopefully painlessly. So that's what we'll be talking about next Tuesday, same time, but on Tuesday, because then on Thursday, we have our quarterly grantee meeting. Any of you are welcome to attend. In particular, there'll be some really important information for all of you project directors that are on today. So Tuesday, we have group coaching. And then Thursday, we have our quarterly grantee meeting. And then my final plug is, as we're heading into our last group coaching sessions, let me know, if there are particular products that you would like to know how to work. I had someone specifically request that they wanted some info on Remind. They wanted some things on family engagement. I want to be providing stuff that's helpful to you. So let me know if there's a particular tool that you want to know how to use, or if there's a particular thing that you want to know how to do. If you're like, I used to do this in my classroom, I have no idea how to accomplish that same thing virtually, let me know. And we can cover those in our final sessions. But you can let me know on here, or you can always let me know via email or give me a call. That is all the reminders and final bits. But if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to stay on and answer those. Otherwise, have a wonderful Thursday. And thank you again to everybody who has already completed the survey and for your very kind words in the chat box. I definitely appreciate it.